Aloha once again, and tonight we're going to go to the island of Molokai in the Hawaiian chain once again to hunt the world-famous axis deer. Once again, my name is Ted Peck, and a very pleasant welcome to Sides and Trails.
Sides and Trails is presented each week at this time by Sportsman Cigarettes. Sportsman, with the tobacco that's too good to filter. Now, here's Ted Peck.
Thank you. And before we start our show tonight, I would like to cover a few generalities and thank quite a few people on the air for making our trip possible, particularly to the island of Molokai. First of all, naturally, the Sportsman Cigarette Company and Canadian Pacific Airlines who made the trip possible. And then here on this side of the blue waters, I'd like to thank personally Mr. Michael Hobbs and Mr. Philip Spaulding of the island of Oahu, who lives over there and is a director of Hawaiian Western Steel, and who made it possible for us to visit the Molokai Ranch, which is part of his family's holdings. It's a very large expanse of ranch, cattle ranch. A lot of you may perhaps not believe that Hawaii is famous for cattle ranching, the big island of Hawaii as well as the island of Molokai. Parker Ranch on Hawaii is one of the largest cattle ranches in the world. Those people, I'd like to thank first before we even start, because they made the trip possible, and I was very fortunate as Uncle Stumbly to be able to go over there with Bill and be able to bring back these films to show you. Now, first of all, let us show you the main islands in the Hawaiian chain. We didn't do this on our first show, and we're going to show you now. Basically, there are 5, or perhaps even considered 6, main islands. The biggest one is Hawaii, which the state is named after. The second largest one, and perhaps by far more important commercially, is the island of Oahu, where the city of Honolulu is located. Then we have on the very farthest northwest, we have Kauai, and the island that we shot, the deer, and also did quite a bit of fishing, is Molokai here. And then you have the Valley Island, the next one to it, Maui. For those of you who go over there, you will probably visit Oahu for certain, and if you're lucky enough, you'll be able to get on some of these other islands. Now, briefly again, speaking of the island of Molokai, we have a large map of it here. I'd like to let you all have a look at it now that you're more or less oriented to it. And we find that it's shaped somewhat like a boot or a slipper. And it's a very mountainous island, some of these mountains going up to 6,000 to 7,000 feet on the eastern end of it. And there used to be a lot of deer in these gulches, all the way through these various gulches. When the rains come, they have a little creek down the bottom of each gulch. For those of you who have heard of the very famous, what was once a leper colony at Kalapapa, which is here. This is a peninsula that sticks, it's isolated from the entire rest of the island, and it sticks out into the Pacific Ocean in this manner. The original leper colony was over at Kalawao on this side of the island, and then eventually this was started by Father Damien, those of you who read the very famous stories about him. The state of Hawaii was once the protectorate of Hawaii, moved the colony over to Kalapapa, where now is a modern hospital located, but still the only access to Kalapapa is by boat from Oahu, or else on the very small airstrip located right in through here. Going over to where we went, the regular Molokai Airport is a modern construction right through here. We flew from Honolulu to Molokai in 35 minutes. And the area we hunted for the deer was the entire west end of the island, all through here. And here again you see all sorts of gulches coming down, and they're just full of these axis deer. And most of this property is owned completely by the Molokai Ranch Limited. And again, we were very fortunate to have Phil Spaulding's permission, and actually we had him with us. And no one, and I mean but no one, hunts on the Molokai Ranch unless you're accompanied by a Spaulding or a cook, which are two of the oldest families in the Hawaiian Islands. Speaking again about the deer, I would like to mention that there's quite a famous story about these deer, the axis deer, that they were a gift from the Emperor of Japan to one of the very famous Hawaiian kings. I think it was Kamehameha I. And he sent, I think, 4 pairs of deer, and they were placed on the island of Molokai. And now there are just thousands of them. And the government of the state of Hawaii provides a public shooting area as well. But when we were over there a few weeks ago, the public season was closed. So that's why I say we're very fortunate to be able to go onto private property and have a crack at some of the axis deer, because they're shot all year round on private lands. Just as you will see, the pigs, the wild boars, are shot again on private lands. There's no season, but in the public shooting ground, the season closes. But there's plenty of deer, and we certainly didn't do much destructive damage. I think for our party of 6, we took 4 deer for a 2-day hunt, so you can see that we weren't really destructive. As far as the condition and shape and size of the deer, we'll let the film show you that. Most of the bucks that were taken were in the velvet, and they are beautiful horns or antlers. They're a single tine that comes up, and then they have one little spike underneath it, and they go up as high as 4 feet in height on these antlers. But before we take you deer hunting, I think we'd like to show you also a few more general scenes of the Hawaiian Islands. We're very fortunate to be there. So let's go now to Waikiki. First of all, we give you an air shot here of Waikiki. This is one of the first sights that will greet you. There's Ala Moana Boat Basin there, very famous one. We're Yacht Harbor. Some of the hotels in the background. Waikiki surf coming in. Catamarans. A lot of visitors are tempted in the palm trees and the coconut trees. A lot of visitors are tempted never to leave this particular part of Oahu. And Waikiki is a separate entity all on its own. I mean, some people say there's Honolulu and then there's Waikiki. But this is where most of the visitors stay. And you're certainly treated royally wherever you go. Being a Canadian, I found it a tremendous experience, and a lot of the Hawaiians wanted to know all about Canada and various places in it. I know that if you're fortunate enough, as we were, to be able to go down there, that you'll take back memories that will live the rest of your life with you. Temperature never varies, even in the wintertime, between 65 and 78. When it's raining, it goes down to about 72, and it does rain, we admit that. One day we were down there, we had 8 inches of rain in one day. Coconuts everywhere on the palms. And it blows, too. We were kept off the water fishing several times by winds that would go up as high as 75 and 80 knots. So it's the open Pacific is nothing to fool with. It looks pretty here, as you see, but pretty dangerous as well, and you have to be very careful to watch the weather reports. These are pineapple fields, miles and miles and miles of pineapple fields on the island of Molokai. We took a little bit of a detour here and there, and flying here at 10,000 feet, you can still see in the distance Mauna Kea there with snow on top of it. A lot of people don't realize that there's snow in Hawaii. These are wild goats, domestic goats placed there years ago by Captain Cook and his crew, and now all gone wild. And they're fair game, too. A lot of them are hunted during the season. But Mauna Kea itself is 13,800 feet in height, and Mauna Loa, which means long mountain, it's 13,600 feet. And there are 2 volcanoes. Mauna Loa is still active, and Mauna Kea is extinct. And there's a game preserve and also a shooting area on both of them. That, of course, is on the big island of Hawaii. You'll be seeing that. That's just a little teaser. We'll be seeing that a little later on. So we're going to go to Molokai and shoot the axis deer. We even show you porpoises here. These are sights that you'll see if you went across to Molokai in a boat rather than in an airplane, which we did. We went both ways. Porpoise weighs about 100 to 120 pounds. It's a very active sea mammal. Plays around your boat. These were taken at Mauna Loa, the still active volcano, and this is one of its most recent eruptions a few years ago. We're walking on lava beds. Much like the consistency of Coke. And there's two types of lava. I forgot the Hawaiian pronunciation of the two types, but one of them is like this, you can walk on. Another type is so sharp that it'll cut your boots all to ribbons, and it's impossible to hike through. But it was quite an experience, and I'd just like to show you as much of it as possible during these shows. Willie and I, just before we left for Molokai, chartered a small craft, and now we're going to get serious about it. Enough of the scenery, let's get on with the deer hunting. Landing at Molokai Airport, we had some very famous companions with us. Philip Spaulding, I've mentioned to you before. You'll meet him, and the gentleman you'll see with him, the chap there that's in the front of the screen right now. Not Uncle Thumbly here, but the other fellow. He is Mr. Ernie Albright, who writes for True Magazine, among other things, and is a very famous sportsman all over the world. And in spite of a disability, he had polio a few years ago. He still gets out and hunts deer, fishes, and a wonderful true sportsman. There he is there, Ernie Albright. He bagged one of the largest bucks on the hunt. There's Jimmy Taylor, whom you met a couple of weeks ago, a good friend of ours from Vancouver. And away we go. This is the public shooting area, which was closed to hunting, so we had to go through it to the private area of the Molokai Ranch. Hawaiian language is a beautiful thing. It's sort of a disease. If you once start pronouncing their words, you have a tendency to inquire as to all of them. There are only 13 letters in the Hawaiian language, and they reuse their vowels a lot there. If you watch closely at the top of your screen now, you will see the first herd of axis deer that we saw, perhaps 30 animals, going over the ridge. A lot of the bucks had shed their horns and hadn't started the velvet coming out again. The chap there in the center of the screen is Bill Cummins, who lives on Molokai, works for the ranch, and there's Phil Spaulding there in the dark glasses. And he was the sort of hunt manager, the shoot commander. And we had 4 walkie-talkies, and the object of the hunt was to go up one side of this cliff and to drive the deer into another area where some of the other hunters were located. I was on the pushing end of it rather than on the waiting end on this particular trip. And Ernie getting all set to knock over his buck. Here I was using a Model 88 Winchester, caliber .308. I mean, a lot of the fellows had just a little .94 carbines. Sometimes you can get awfully close to these deer. Sometimes they're a long, long ways away and just a sort of an orange flash in the bush. There's David Nottage, whom you met 2 weeks ago, captain of the Alkaka. This young lad there is a cook, Charlie Cook's son. See the deer there standing just looking at you in the center of the screen. They're so pretty, you don't even want to shoot them. But they're just as delicious venison there as you'd find anywhere in the world. Away they go. Tracks. Just being on the island of Molokai is quite an experience, and you can stand and look at the surf breaking around you, and We get disinterested sometimes in the deer hunting, but there's certainly lots of deer there. The resident population is better than 10,000 just for that small area. See the deer trail there, just a worn path. Bill Cummins tracking them, reporting their position so we can get a shot of them and Bill on the camera. We'd rather take pictures of them than kill them. Now we go in for a little lunch break in one of the outbuildings. Let's go back to Aloha Land and more axis deer on the island of Molokai. Now we're going to show you something a little different. While we were having lunch, one of the young cook lads did a little throw net fishing. And he was fishing for a little fish called a moi, M-O-I, which was once considered the king's fish. And only the kings and their families of the islands of Hawaii were allowed to eat them. And they throw a complete circle around with a cast net. They gather up all the ends and then hope to come up with a large amount of these moi, or fish. They catch bonefish in this way and various other types too. Wish we had color TV to show you the color of that water. Brilliant, brilliant blue. Most of the Hawaiian youngsters are expert swimmers by the time they're even 6, and they have no fear at all of these large breakers, combers coming in, but they respect them very, very much. The undertow is very severe, and if you get caught in the wrong surge coming in, you could dash your head or against the rocks. They just put on a little demonstration for us here, and we show you a moi that they caught, holding a sportsman cigarette package at the same time. It looks like an anchovy for those of you who live on the coast, with an Andy Gump type of mouth underslung. And it's evidently a delicious filleted delicacy. Back off into the brush once again, in search of axis deer. Pineapple fields everywhere. The Dole Corporation has large amounts. Del Monte has a big holding as well. We even picked a couple ourselves, and they're delicious when they're fresh there. 4 beautiful deer heading off into the timber. Now you're going to see Bill Cummins, our guide and driver here, have a terrible time after one of the rainstorms that we encountered. So it's not all, as I say, surf and hula girls. This red clay can get awful gunky, real gumbo, just like the prairie mud in the fall and the spring. Could have used a pair of chains here very effectively. There's young Tozzer Spalding, Phil's son, came along with us. Good junior sportsman. Here's where Uncle Thumbly, or as I call myself during these shows, Anakala Hauli, which means the same, and Jim Taylor giving her a shove. And you might as well be stuck in a snowbank. It's about the same thing. Of course, Wild Bill, the cameraman, gets out of all the work because he has to take pictures of it all. Finally, we get her going. And thence to the top of the hill. Four more beautiful axis deer. Tozzer has a shot. If you watch closely, you can see the bullets spattering around him. Bill has a shot. Bill actually dropped one here, just off the edge of your screen. Those walkie-talkies helped a lot too. Here you'll see the buck. I believe this one here is one that Ernie Albright shot. You see the start of the horns coming out again, the antlers. You notice the spots on them, just like a fawn. we would have here, a whitetail or a mule deer or a coast deer fawn, be the same coloring, but these deer have them all throughout their life. They're very, very fast deer. Jim Taylor, who was raised in India, claims that they're very similar, if not identical, to what he would call a cheetal deer. Nice modern airport on Molokai. Has regular service to Oahu, the main island. And I can't express again enough the thanks that we owe to Phil Spaulding for making this possible, getting onto Molokai. You can get Jim Taylor carrying the tripods. Uncle Stumbly carrying spare cameras. While Bill made sure we'd get these pictures, he always had at least 2 cameras going. Thanking Bill Cummins. We spent a very wonderful night with Bill and his family, eating Hawaiian food. He put on a personal little private luau for us. And back to Waikiki. Well, I certainly hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you enjoyed watching the pictures as much as Bill and I have enjoyed bringing them to you. It takes me back there once again to Hawaii. It's a wonderful place to go for a holiday. I don't know, quite honestly, whether being a Canadian, I could really live there. The people move a little bit slower. They're more like my speed. But to most Canadians, they would appear to move in just a little bit of a manana-type attitude, you know, that, well, weather's staying the same, we'll do it tomorrow, sort of a thing. And we were there on quite a rushed schedule, making 5 television shows, but we received wonderful cooperation, not only from the Spauldings and people like Dave Nottage, but people right on the islands like Bill Cummins. And as you will see in future shows, things like boar hunting. Don't forget to watch that one, because I know that you're going to enjoy seeing Uncle Stumbly chasing after a wild boar and which one is the boar and this sort of a thing. Next week we're going to go from what you see here, the real sort of a heat wave. We're going to go right into the deep freeze. Going to go to an area north of Winnipeg where the temperature is pretty cool. And our thin blood from the Hawaiian Islands, I think, is going to get thickened up rather quickly. And we're going to attempt some ice fishing for various types of fish found in the prairie. Then back again to the boar hunting. And then eventually we're going to take you to the big island, this island of Hawaii, where we show you Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, and we give you the descriptions of that. And then we're going to catch an ahi. Now, an ahi, again, this is just a bit of a tease. An ahi means it's a large tuna. Shall we say the generic name of it is the Allison or yellowfin tuna. It goes up to about 300 pounds. Uncle Stumbly catches one of 142 pounds. It takes about an hour and a half of this back-breaking jazz with the chair and so on. But ahi means fire. Now, the reason that the fish was named fire was in the old days on the islands of Hawaii, they go out in their outrigger canoes, and they just had hand lines made out of vines, I presume. And if they ever hooked an ahi, the line would go out of their hand so fast and across the gunnel of the outrigger canoe that it would burn, absolutely burn and smoke, hence the name ahi. The Hawaiians call all their large fish small names, like their marlin, it's called a'u. And a little teeny-weeny fish, which is, I caught 2 or 3 of these at night, like a little red snapper you'd find on the coast, are called papakukahuka, but a name about yay long. But all their large ones are little wee short names like ahi and ahu. I know you're going to enjoy that particular show too. Thanks for being with us, and remember our conservation creed. Let's keep everything going for our kids and our grandchildren. Let's all try to be true sportsmen. Don't forget, smoke sportsman cigarettes, and we'll be joining you next week in the deep freeze of the ice fishing. Thanks for being with us. Ted Peck once again wishing you all the best, and tight lines, straight shooting.
Sportsman Cigarettes, with the tobacco that's too good to filter, has brought you Tides and Trails. Join Ted Peck next week at the same time. All travel arrangements courtesy of Canadian Pacific Airlines. Tides and Trails was produced for Sportsman Cigarettes by CHAN-TV, Vancouver.